The deadliest man in the city didn't flinch when bullets flew, but the sight of a dropped tray in a rundown diner brought him to his knees. There she was, the wife he mourned for months, alive, heavily pregnant, and scrubbing tables just to survive. The betrayal was absolute. The rain in the Southside district didn't wash away the grime, it only made it slicker. Inside Rusty's, a 2-4 hour diner that smelled permanently of scorched coffee, bleach, and desperation, the air was thick with the low murmur of late-night patrons. In the corner booth, furthest from the windows, sat Leon. To the criminal underworld, he was a ghost story whispered in the dark, a ruthless, calculated Korean-American syndicate boss who had taken over his adoptive family's empire with an iron grip and a heart made of ice. But the ice was a recent addition. It formed exactly 8 months and 12 days ago, on the night his wife's car was found at the bottom of the bay, a burned-out husk. Leon sat perfectly still, his tailored charcoal suit a stark contrast to the cracked red vinyl of the booth. Across from him, his right-hand man, Kit, was sliding a manila folder across the table. Next to Kit sat Victor, a low-level distributor who is currently sweating through his cheap cologne. "The shipments from the docks are secured," Kit said, his voice a smooth, calming baritone. "Victor here understands the new tax bracket. Don't you, Victor?" Victor nodded frantically. "Yes, sir. Absolutely. No issues, Mr. Leon." Leon didn't look at the folder. He didn't look at Victor. He was staring at the dregs of his black coffee, lost in the hollow, echoing cavern of his own mind. He had been dead inside since the day he buried an empty casket. His beautiful Naomi, the only woman who had ever looked at the monster he was and seen a man worth loving, the only light in his blood-soaked world. "Leon?" Kit prompted gently. Before Leon could answer, a sharp, shattering crash echoed through the diner. Normally, a broken plate wouldn't warrant a second glance from a man who regularly ordered executions before breakfast. But the sound was followed by a harsh, drunken slur. "Watch it, sweetheart. You got grease all over my boots." Leon shifted his dark, cold eyes toward the counter. A massive, bearded trucker was standing up, towering over a waitress who had dropped a tray of dirty dishes. "I'm so sorry, sir," the waitress stammered, her voice breathless and trembling. The floor was wet. "I'll clean it up immediately." Leon's breath hitched. His heart, which had beat in a slow, apathetic rhythm for the better part of a year, suddenly seized in his chest. That voice. He blinked, the harsh fluorescent lights buzzing above him, convinced for a fraction of a second that the grief had finally cracked his sanity. Slowly, deliberately, he leaned out of the booth to get a clearer view of the woman kneeling on the floor, frantically gathering shards of thick ceramic. She was turned away from him, wearing a faded blue uniform that was 3 sizes too big and a stained white apron. But as she reached for a broken glass, the trucker sneered and kicked a piece of ceramic toward her hand. She flinched and looked up, her profile catching the flickering neon light from the window. Rich, dark skin, high cheekbones shadowed by exhaustion, full lips pulled tight in fear, and a halo of thick, natural dark curls tied back in a messy, practical puff. Leon stopped breathing. The diner faded away. The buzzing of the lights, the heavy rain hitting the glass, the frantic heartbeat in his own ears, everything vanished into a vacuum of absolute, paralyzing shock. Naomi. It was her. It was his wife. She looked thinner in her face, exhausted, with dark circles under her eyes. But it was undeniably the woman he had loved, the woman he had mourned, the woman whose supposed death had turned him into a merciless butcher. Then she shifted her weight to stand up. As she gripped the edge of the counter and pushed herself up, the oversized apron pulled tight against her body. Leon's eyes locked onto her midsection. She was pregnant, heavily pregnant. The sheer size of her stomach suggested she was at least 8 months along. 8 months. The timeline hit Leon like a physical blow to the jaw. She had vanished 8 months ago. "Hey, don't just stand there. Get a mop," the trucker barked, grabbing her wrist roughly. A primal, violent surge of adrenaline exploded in Leon's veins. In a fraction of a second, the shock morphed into a lethal, blinding rage. "Leon?" Kit asked, noticing the sudden shift in his boss's posture. "What is it?" Leon didn't answer. He stood up. The movement was so abrupt, so predatory, that Victor instinctively shrank back against the vinyl seat. Leon stepped out of the booth, his eyes fixed on the trucker, whose hand was still wrapped around Naomi's wrist. Naomi tried to pull away. Please, let go of me, she whispered, her free hand instinctively flying down to protect the massive swell of her belly. Not until you apologize proper, the trucker started, but the words died in his throat. Leon had crossed the diner in 3 massive strides. He didn't speak, he didn't warn. He simply grabbed the trucker by the back of his thick neck, his fingers digging into the nerve clusters with bone-crushing force, and slammed the man's face down into the formica counter. The sickening crack of cartilage silenced the entire diner. The trucker crumpled to the floor, unconscious, blood pooling from his shattered nose. Gasps erupted from the surrounding tables. The fry cook in the back paused, wide-eyed. Kit and Victor were immediately on their feet, hands reaching for the concealed weapons under their jackets. But Leon ignored them all. He slowly turned his head, his chest heaving, to look at the waitress. Naomi was frozen against the counter. Her wide, terrified brown eyes traveled up from the bleeding man on the floor to the tailored suit, and finally, to the face of her savior. When their eyes met, all the color drained from Naomi's face. She looked as though she were staring directly at the devil himself. Naomi, Leon whispered. His voice was raw, a desperate, broken sound that didn't belong to the head of the city's most feared syndicate. For a second, neither of them moved. The silence between them was heavier than the humid air of the diner. Leon stepped forward, raising a trembling hand toward her face, wanting, needing to feel her skin, to prove she wasn't a phantom. But as his hand drew near, Naomi let out a choked, terrified sob. She turned and bolted. Naomi, wait! Leon's shout tore through the diner, sharp and desperate. He scrambled over the fallen trucker, his polished shoes slipping slightly on the wet linoleum, and gave chase. Naomi was slowed by the heavy weight of her pregnancy, but absolute terror gave her a frantic agility. She shoved through the swinging metal doors of the kitchen. Hey, you can't be back here, the fry cook yelled as Leon burst through the doors a second later, ignoring the blast of heat from the grills. Get out, Leon snarled, his voice vibrating with such lethal authority that the cook immediately dropped his spatula and sprinted out the side exit. Naomi, Leon called out, his eyes scanning the chaotic, narrow kitchen. Naomi, please! He saw a shadow move near the back, toward the heavy steel door of the walk-in freezer and the alley exit beyond it. He moved swiftly, weaving through the stainless steel prep tables. He reached the back hallway just as she was struggling to unlock the deadbolt of the heavy back door. Her hands were shaking too violently to turn the latch. Leon slammed his hand flat against the door above her head, trapping her. Naomi screamed a short, sharp sound of absolute panic. She spun around, pressing her back against the cold steel of the door, her hands wrapping protectively around her swollen belly. She squeezed her eyes shut, trembling like a cornered animal. Don't, she sobbed, tears spilling down her cheeks. Please, Leon, kill me if you have to, but please, please let me have the baby first. I beg you. I'll do anything. Just let my baby live. The words struck Leon with the force of a bullet. He stepped back, physically recoiling as if she had stabbed him. His breathing was ragged, his mind spinning violently off its axis. Kill you? He breathed, his voice barely a whisper. Naomi, look at me. She shook her head violently, keeping her eyes clamped shut, bracing for a gunshot, for a knife, for the violence she clearly believed he was about to inflict upon her. Naomi, look at me, he pleaded, the cold Mafia boss entirely shattered, leaving only a desperate, broken husband. Slowly, she opened her eyes. They were brimming with tears, wide with terror and confusion. Why would I hurt you? Leon asked, his voice cracking. He gestured helplessly to her belly, to the stained apron. I thought you were dead. For 8 months, I thought you burned in that car. I buried an empty box, Naomi. I haven't slept, I haven't lived, and you're here, working in a diner. He stared at her stomach, the reality of it washing over him again. Is that? He's yours, she whispered defensively, her hands tightening on her belly. Of course he's yours. I was 2 weeks pregnant when I found out. Found out what? Leon demanded, stepping closer, desperately needing answers. Why did you run? Why did you fake your death? Who did this to you? Naomi stared at him, her brow furrowing in a mix of disbelief and lingering fear. You're asking me that? You know why I ran, Leon. You ordered it. I ordered what? He roared, the sheer absurdity of the accusation making his blood boil. The hit! Naomi cried out, matching his volume, pushed to the edge by her own trauma. The hit on my brother! And the order to get rid of me! Leon froze. The world seemed to stop spinning. What are you talking about? I loved your brother. I got him out of the game. I paid for his college. And then you had him shot in the chest outside his dorm. Naomi fired back, her voice breaking into a wail. He barely survived. Leon! He's in hiding. And the night he was shot, someone left a burner phone on my pillow while you were out. It had a copy of the encrypted messages from your private server, your personal authorization codes. Leon's mind raced. Only 3 people in the entire world had access to those authorization codes. Himself, his deceased father, and Kit. What did the messages say? Leon asked, his voice suddenly dropping to a deadly, chilling calm. The emotional husband was receding. The ruthless boss was stepping back into the light, connecting the bloody dots. Naomi swallowed hard, trembling. It said my brother was a liability, that he knew too much about the Southside operations. It ordered the hit. And the next message said that once he was dead, I needed to be removed because I would ask too many questions. It said I was making you soft, that you needed to be untethered to lead the syndicate. Leon closed his eyes. A sickening, profound wave of betrayal washed over him. Who showed you the phone, Naomi? He asked quietly. Who gave it to you? I don't know who put it there, she whispered. But when I panicked, when I didn't know what to do, I called the only person I thought could protect me. I called Kit. Leon's jaw tightened so hard a muscle feathered in his cheek. Kit. Kit told me he intercepted the orders, Naomi continued, crying softly now. He said you had lost your mind, that the power had made you paranoid. He said if I stayed, you would kill me. He helped me stage the car crash. He gave me new papers, cash, and told me to run and never look back. He said it was the only way to save my life and my baby's life. He told you I wanted you dead, Leon stated, the words tasting like ash in his mouth. He said you were coming for me, Naomi whispered. Leon, if you didn't send those messages, if you didn't order the hit on my brother. Kit did, Leon finished for her. The realization was absolute and damning. Kit had orchestrated the hit on her brother to create the panic. Kit had forged the messages. Kit had helped her escape, effectively removing the only thing keeping Leon human, turning Leon into the cold, ruthless, and easily manipulated war machine Kit needed to wipe out their rivals. Kit had stolen his wife. Kit had stolen 8 months of his child's life. Suddenly, the heavy metal door of the kitchen swung open. Footsteps echoed down the narrow hallway. Slow, deliberate, and heavy. Leon? Kit's smooth, baritone voice called out from the shadows of the kitchen. Is everything all right back here? Victor is getting nervous. Naomi gasped, her hands flying to her mouth. She looked at Leon in sheer, unadulterated panic. Kit, the man she thought had saved her, the man who had actually destroyed her life, was standing 30 feet away. Leon looked at his wife. He saw the terror in her eyes, the exhaustion in her posture, the heavy burden of the child she had protected with her life. The ice around his heart didn't just crack. It shattered, replaced by an inferno of pure, uncontrollable violence. He reached out, his hand gentle this time, and cupped Naomi's cheek. He wiped a tear away with his thumb. Stay behind me, Leon whispered, his voice a promise of absolute death to anyone who crossed them. He smoothly drew the heavy, suppressed, customized pistol from the holster beneath his jacket. It's time to take out the trash. The heavy footsteps stopped just outside the hallway. The fluorescent lights overhead flickered, casting long, distorted shadows across the greasy floor tiles of the kitchen. Kit stepped into the threshold, his tailored navy suit impeccable, a customized Sig Sauer P, 226 hanging casually in his right hand. Victor flanked him, looking nervous, his eyes darting around the stainless steel prep tables and the humming deep fryers. Kit's eyes locked onto Leon. Then, they shifted slowly to the woman cowering behind him. For a fraction of a second, genuine surprise flashed across Kit's usually unreadable face. Well, Kit murmured, the smooth baritone of his voice completely devoid of the panic that usually accompanied a compromised lie. I have to admit, Leon, the odds of you walking into this specific diner on this specific night in a city of 4 million people, it defies all statistical probability. I tipped her generously to get on a Greyhound to Chicago. She clearly lacks follow through. Naomi whimpered, clutching the back of Leon's suit jacket, her knuckles turning a pale ashy gray against her rich, dark skin. Her worst nightmare was standing in front of her, confirming every horrifying suspicion. You set me up, Leon said. His voice wasn't a shout. It was a low, guttural vibration that seemed to make the air temperature drop. You forged my authorization codes. You tried to murder her brother. Isaiah was a loose end, Kit replied casually, taking a slow step forward. A civilian who knew the location of the Southside Armory and the offshore routing numbers. And Naomi. Kit tilted his head, his eyes cold and calculating. Naomi was ruining you, Leon. Before you met her, you were a ghost, a machine. You made decisions based on profit and power. After her, you started talking about legitimacy. You started talking about retirement. The syndicate couldn't afford a weak king. So you made me a widower, Leon stated, his grip tightening on his suppressed Glock 19. I made you a weapon, Kit corrected. And it worked beautifully for 8 months. We wiped out the Moretti family. We took the docks. You were ruthless again. But I see the leash is back on. Kit raised his weapon. Victor, put a bullet in the woman's stomach. I'll handle Leon. Victor hesitated, his hands shaking as he raised his cheap revolver. Kit, she's pregnant. Man, I don't. Victor never finished the sentence. Leon moved with blinding, terrifying speed. He didn't just shoot. He executed a tactical sweep he had perfected in his youth. 2 suppressed thwips echoed through the narrow hallway. The first hollow point round shattered Victor's kneecap. The second pierced his right shoulder. Victor screamed, collapsing to the linoleum, his gun skittering under a prep table. Kit fired simultaneously. The deafening roar of the unsuppressed Sig Sauer shattered the kitchen's silence, the muzzle flash illuminating the room in bursts of violent yellow. Get down! Leon roared, shoving Naomi hard against the heavy steel door of the walk-in freezer. A bullet grazed Leon's ribs, tearing through his charcoal suit jacket and biting into his flesh. He barely flinched. He returned fire, suppressing Kit behind a massive industrial Hobart mixer. Sparks rained down as bullets ricocheted off the heavy kitchen equipment. The smell of sulfur, vaporized cooking oil, and blood flooded the enclosed space. You can't get out of here, Leon, Kit yelled over the ringing in their ears. I have men outside in the cars. You think I travel with just Victor? Leon knew Kit was right. He couldn't fight a prolonged gun battle here, not with Naomi heavily pregnant and paralyzed by terror. He needed an exit, and he needed it now. Naomi, Leon barked, his eyes never leaving the edge of the mixer where Kit was hiding. He reached blindly behind him, grabbing the heavy latch of the freezer door. When I open this, get inside and move to the back wall. Do not stop. Do not look back. Leon, no, we'll freeze, she sobbed, her hands wrapped tightly around her massive belly, her protective instincts for her unborn child fighting against the immediate threat of gunfire. Do it! Leon threw the freezer door open. A blast of sub-zero air rushed into the sweltering kitchen. Naomi scrambled inside, her oversized, worn sneakers slipping on the frosted floor grid. As soon as she was clear, Leon reached into his inner jacket pocket and pulled out a tactical flashbang grenade, a standard carry from his days raiding rival storehouses. He pulled the pin with his teeth. Kit! Leon yelled. Kit leaned out to fire, but Leon pitched the canister perfectly. It bounced off the prep table and landed directly at Kit's Italian leather shoes. Son of a bang. The kitchen erupted in a blinding flash of white light and a concussive boom that shattered the remaining plates on the racks. Kit cried out, stumbling backward, temporarily blinded and deafened. Leon didn't hesitate. He slipped into the walk-in freezer and pulled the heavy steel door shut behind him, locking it from the inside. Complete darkness swallowed them, accompanied by the deafening hum of the cooling fans. Naomi? Leon whispered urgently, flicking on a small tactical pen light. The beam cut through the freezing fog, illuminating her sitting on the floor between stacks of frozen meat, her teeth already chattering. He rushed to her side, stripping off his ruined, blood-stained suit jacket and wrapping it around her shivering shoulders. "I've got you," he murmured, his thumb brushing a stray, frozen curl of dark hair from her forehead. "I'm going to get you out of here." He turned to the back of the freezer. Every commercial kitchen freezer had an emergency release hatch leading to the alley for fire code regulations. He found the glowing green handle, kicked away a stack of frozen fries, and shoved the door open. The damp, rainy air of the alleyway felt like a tropical breeze compared to the freezer. Leon helped Naomi up, supporting her heavy weight as they spilled out into the dark, trash-strewn alley. "My car is 3 blocks down," Leon said, his breathing ragged as the adrenaline began to wear off, letting the burning pain in his ribs flare to life. "Can you walk?" "I have to," Naomi gasped, gripping his arm. They moved through the shadows of the south side, sticking to the narrow spaces between brick buildings. Sirens began to wail in the distance, converging on Rusty's diner. After 10 agonizing minutes of navigating broken glass and overflowing dumpsters, they reached a secure, private parking garage. Leon's heavily armored Mercedes-Benz AMG G63 sat in the darkest corner. He unlocked it, ushering Naomi into the passenger seat before climbing behind the wheel. The engine roared to life with a deep, menacing growl. As they peeled out of the garage and merged onto the rain-slicked expressway, Leon pulled out a burner phone. He dialed a number he hadn't used in 8 months. "Gideon," Leon said the moment the line connected. "Boss?" The voice on the other end answered, thick with sleep but instantly alert. Gideon was the only captain Leon trusted explicitly, a man whose loyalty was bought with blood, not money. Kit went rogue, Leon commanded, steering the heavy SUV with his left hand, while pressing a hand against his bleeding side. He set the hit on Isaiah. He faked Naomi's death. "She's alive, Gideon." "She's in the car with me." A stunned silence stretched over the phone. Then, Gideon's voice snapped back, razor sharp. "Give the order, Leon. Lock down the safe house in Oakhaven, the brownstone on 4th. I'm heading there now. Bring the private medic. And Gideon?" "Yeah, boss?" "Find Isaiah Jenkins. I don't care what rock he's hiding under. Find my brother-in-law and bring him to Oakhaven. Tonight." The Oakhaven safe house didn't look like a mafia fortress. It was a restored 19th century brownstone, nestled in an affluent, quiet neighborhood, surrounded by wrought iron fences and towering oak trees. Inside, however, it was a state-of-the-art bunker equipped with reinforced steel doors, bulletproof glass, and an off-the-books medical suite in the basement. Leon carried Naomi through the front doors. She was completely exhausted, her body trembling from the cold, the terror, and the immense physical toll of running at 8 months pregnant. He laid her gently on the plush velvet sofa in the main living room. The fireplace was already roaring, thanks to Gideon, who had arrived minutes before them. "Blankets." Now, Leon ordered as Gideon, and a private trauma surgeon, Dr. Eris, rushed into the room. Dr. Eris took one look at Leon's blood-soaked shirt. "Mr. Leon, you're bleeding heavily. I need to look at that." "Look at her first," Leon snapped, his voice echoing off the high ceilings. He refused to sit down, hovering over Naomi like a protective gargoyle. "Check the baby. Check her." Naomi reached out, her trembling hand catching Leon's wrist. The touch was electric. It was the first time she had willingly touched him since the diner. "Leon," she whispered, her voice hoarse. "Let him help you." I think I'm okay. The baby is moving, but you're bleeding everywhere." Reluctantly, Leon stepped back, allowing Dr. Eris to check Naomi's vitals. Once the doctor confirmed her blood pressure was stabilizing and the fetal heart rate was strong, he turned his attention to the Mafia boss. Leon stripped off his ruined shirt, revealing the muscular, heavily scarred canvas of his torso. The bullet had taken a deep chunk of flesh out of his right obliques, narrowly missing his ribs. As Dr. Eris began to clean the wound and pack it with surgical-grade quick clot, Leon didn't even wince. His dark eyes were fixed entirely on his wife. Naomi was staring back at him from the sofa. The silence between them was heavy, loaded with 8 months of grief, lies, and a love that refused to stay buried. "You really didn't know," she whispered, the last of her doubts finally shattering. "You thought I burned in that car." "I spent 3 days digging through the ashes at the impound lot," Leon said softly, ignoring the needle piercing his skin as the doctor stitched him up. I was looking for your engagement ring. I wanted something to bury, but I found nothing. I thought the fire had melted it. Naomi slowly reached into the pocket of her oversized, stained uniform. Her fingers trembled as she pulled out a cheap leather cord. Threaded onto it was a stunning, 3-carat, flawless diamond ring set in platinum. I couldn't leave it, she confessed, a tear slipping down her cheek. Even when I hated you, even when I thought you wanted me dead, I couldn't throw it away. Leon exhaled a shaky breath, feeling an invisible weight lift from his chest. He stood up, gently pushing the doctor aside, and walked over to the sofa. He knelt on the hardwood floor beside her, ignoring the throbbing pain in his side. He carefully took the leather cord from her hands, snapped it, and slid the diamond ring back onto her left ring finger. It fit perfectly. I swear to you, Naomi, Leon murmured, pressing his forehead against hers, breathing in the scent of her that he thought he'd lost forever. I will tear this city down to the bedrock to keep you and our child safe. Kit is a dead man. Before Naomi could answer, the heavy steel deadbolt of the front door echoed through the house. Gideon stepped into the living room, his expression grim. Behind him walked a tall, lean black man in a heavy coat, looking battered, exhausted, and deeply paranoid. He walked with a heavy limp, favoring his left side. Naomi gasped, struggling to sit up. Isaiah! Isaiah Jenkins froze in the doorway. His eyes darted from the armed guards to the blood on the floor, to Leon, and finally to his sister. Know me? Isaiah choked out, dropping the duffel bag he was carrying. Isaiah! Naomi sobbed, pushing herself off the sofa. Leon instinctively caught her arm to steady her, supporting her weight as she rushed toward her brother. The two siblings collided in a desperate, tearful embrace. Isaiah buried his face in Naomi's thick curls, weeping openly. I thought he killed you, Isaiah cried, glaring over his sister's shoulder at Leon. I heard about the car. I thought he burned you alive to tie up loose ends. It wasn't him, Izzy, Naomi wept, clutching her brother's coat. It was Kit. Kit set you up. He lied to both of us. Isaiah pulled back, looking at Leon with a mixture of distrust and utter shock. Kit? You're telling me Kit has been running the board this whole time? He has, Leon said coldly, stepping forward. And you're going to tell me exactly what you found out before he shot you, Isaiah. Because he wouldn't risk killing my brother-in-law unless you stumbled onto something that could destroy him. Isaiah swallowed hard, helping Naomi back to the sofa. He looked at Leon, the hostility slowly draining from his face, replaced by a grim realization of the true enemy. I was doing audits on the South Side routing accounts, Isaiah explained, pulling a crumpled, encrypted ledger from his coat pocket. You asked me to clean up the books for the legitimate businesses, but I found ghost accounts, millions of dollars being siphoned out of the syndicate's offshore holdings. Where was the money going? Gideon asked, stepping closer. To the Moretti family, Isaiah revealed, dropping the bomb. Kit wasn't just planning a coup to take your throne, Leon. He sold you out. He's been funding the Morettis for a year. The hit on me, faking Naomi's death. It was all to isolate you, to make you go to war with the other families, so they would wipe each other out, leaving Kit and the Morettis to take the ashes. Leon's jaw locked. The betrayal was deeper than he could have ever imagined. Kit had orchestrated a bloodbath that had cost dozens of lives, all while smiling in Leon's face and pretending to be his loyal shadow. Boss, Gideon said quietly, racking the slide of his rifle. We need to hit him before he realizes you survived the diner. If he rallies the Morettis tonight, we hit them all, Leon said, his eyes darkening into voids of pure, lethal intent. Gather the loyalists. We empty the armories. Tonight, we paint the streets. Leon, Naomi's scream cut through the room like a jagged knife. Leon spun around. Naomi was gripping the edge of the sofa, her face contorted in absolute agony. She was panting heavily, her knuckles stark white against the velvet fabric. Beneath her, a dark puddle of fluid was rapidly seeping into the hardwood floor. The baby, Naomi gasped, staring at Leon with wide, terrified eyes. Leon, my water just broke. It's too early. The pain. It's... She cut off with a gut-wrenching scream, clutching her massive stomach as a brutal contraction ripped through her body. The war would have to wait. The king's heir was demanding an early entrance. Get her to the basement now, Dr. Eris barked, catching Naomi as her strength gave out. Leon didn't hesitate. He swept her into his arms, ignoring the searing pain from the bullet wound in his side, and carried her down into the underground medical suite. The sterile white room, filled with monitors and surgical lights, felt like another battlefield, only this time, the fight was for life. Naomi writhed on the bed, her skin slick with cold sweat. It's too early, Leon. He's only 34 weeks, she gasped, her fingers digging into his arm. He'll be strong. Like you, Leon said, his voice low and steady, the only calm in the chaos. A sharp voice crackled through the intercom. Boss, we've got a problem, Gideon said. 4 armored SUVs at the gates. It's Kit! And he brought Moretti. The war had arrived. Leon gripped Naomi's hand one last time. I have to go. Don't die, she choked out. No one touches my queen, he whispered, then stepped out, sealing the heavy steel door behind him. Upstairs, hell erupted. Gunfire thundered as the front doors exploded inward. Leon moved like a predator, fast, precise, unstoppable. 3 shots, 3 men down. Smoke and splintered wood filled the air. Through it all, Kit emerged. It's over, Leon! He shouted. Leon didn't answer. He charged. Bullets tore past him, but he was faster. When the distance closed, he dropped his gun and drew his knife. In one brutal motion, he drove the blade deep into Kit's abdomen. You took 8 months from me, Leon growled, twisting the knife. Kit collapsed, lifeless. Silence followed. Leon turned and sprinted back downstairs. He threw open the vault door and heard a cry. Naomi was alive, and in Dr. Eris's hands, a tiny, fragile child. Congratulations, the doctor said softly. You have a son. Leon's hands trembled as he took the baby. Then he fell to his knees beside Naomi, pressing their child gently against her. The deadliest man in the city buried his face in his wife's shoulder and wept. Epilogue: The New Empire. 1 year later. The sun set over the city skyline, casting a golden hue through the floor-to-ceiling windows of the penthouse suite at the top of the newly established Jenkins-Leon corporate tower. The underworld had been entirely restructured. With Kit dead and the Moretti family decimated by Leon's brutal retaliation the following week, the remaining factions had surrendered without a fight. But Leon didn't take their territories to expand the drugs and the guns. He took them to liquidate them. Isaiah, now fully healed and acting as the syndicate's chief financial officer, had successfully laundered the remaining billions into legitimate real estate and tech investments. The blood money was washed clean. Leon stood by the window wearing a tailored navy suit, though he refused to wear a tie anymore. He swirled a glass of bourbon, looking out over the city he owned, not with fear, but with legal ink. Soft footsteps approached from behind. 2 warm arms wrapped around his waist, and a soft cheek pressed against his back. He finally went to sleep, Naomi whispered. Leon turned around, wrapping his arms around his wife. She was breathtaking. The exhaustion of the diner was a distant memory. She wore a stunning emerald green silk dress, the 3-carat diamond sparkling fiercely on her finger. Caleb is stubborn, Leon smiled, kissing the top of her head. He fights sleep like it's a rival gang. He gets that from his father, Naomi teased, looking up into his eyes. He gets his strength from his mother, Leon corrected softly. He reached out, tracing her jawline. I love you, Naomi. I will spend the rest of my life making up for the time we lost. Naomi smiled, pulling him down for a slow, deep kiss. You already have, Leon. We survived the fire. Now, we just get to live. Leon pulled her close, staring out at the city lights. The ghost was dead, the king was alive, and his queen was exactly where she belonged. Did Leon's ruthless devotion and Naomi's incredible resilience leave you breathless? If you love this intense, heart-stopping mafia romance and want more gripping stories filled with betrayal, loyalty, and undeniable love, smash that like button. Don't forget to share this video with your fellow drama lovers, and hit subscribe with notifications on so you never miss a twist. What should our next story be? Tell us in the comments below.